YouTube, Rook here from Rook Geek Goodness, my little channel web for all things geeky and cool, and welcome back to the channel, guys. Welcome back to the action figure and unboxing video. I'm really excited to really get into this particular figure. Of course, we're talking about the Mcfarlane Toys, about 7-inch scale, Green Lantern John Stewart DC Rebirth figure. Now, this figure is based on the DC Rebirth property that happened in 2018, where basically DC relaunched all their titles with the branding of DC Rebirth. All books had a #1 listing for them, and Green Lantern was no different. Of course, this is the John Stewart version of Rebirth. This is not coming from this version, which was the Justice League Unlimited version of Green Lantern John Stewart, which launched in 2020 when the series first launched for Mcfarlane Toys. We did a full review of this particular guy. If you've not yet watched that video, I highly recommend watching my video on the DC Multiverse, Mcfarlane Toys, John Stewart, Justice League Unlimited, Green Lantern. That's a mouthful, but we did a full review for this guy right here, again in the 7-inch scale. So don't get that guy confused with this guy right here. They're two separate figures, two completely different characters as far as the design goes. That was the animated version. This is more comic book accurate to an extent here. So it's a really cool figure. I was really excited to do yet another Green Lantern figure. There isn't a lot of Green Lantern figures as a whole when it comes to comicdom coming into the action figure property. Yes, they have a few here and there. Your big heavy hitters, of course, your Batman and your Superman and your Wonder Woman. Those three figures, and really Flash too now, are your big four characters when it comes to action figures. And getting another Green Lantern figure, of course, John Stewart, again, is cool. I like that idea. But there's a lot really to digest with this particular figure, both good and bad. And I want to thank first all my viewers and subscribers who watch all of my content. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot to me for you to watch and come back to my content. But if you're someone new, never watched any of my videos before, please give this video a like at the bottom page and click that subscribe button, which is a picture of my face, or the 8-bit icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It will absolutely help this video get across the YouTube platform and let more people looking for this type of video can find it. So very first thing we do like a video review like this, if you've never watched my content before, is what I call my breakdown segment. Basically, I break this figure down from packaging as a whole. So the very first thing in the breakdown, we look at the packaging and presentation. Again, this is your typical Mcfarlane design box we've seen in multiple figures starting again in 2020. Let's start at the top right here and work our way down. We have the 22 points of articulation, which it spouts at the top of the card here. I believe almost all the figures in this scale will have 22 points of articulation. It may vary if the figure goes to a higher scale or maybe a lower scale. That point of articulation may change. Of course, over here we have the Mcfarlane Toys icon, a great window box display of the character you will be getting inside this particular packaging. Nice picture of John Stewart. Over here you have some accessories that are showcased on the blister card. There's a figure stand right here because they all have figure stands. And in the back there's a piece of artwork, which is a little like plastic, not plastic, but it's a kind of a cardboard card that doesn't attach to the figure stand. It just fits freely. You can lose that. I made a gripe about it when it came to the other John Stewart figure, which we talked about momentarily ago. I do think that's an issue. I don't like it. Over here we have DC Multiverse, which is the logo, the branding for the particular packaging for the characters. At the bottom here you have Green Lantern John Stewart. Over here again we have Green Lantern John Stewart on the packaging on the side. Over here, same deal, DC Multiverse. Hope they can get it right there perfect. Green Lantern John Stewart might not come across really well on camera. Get really close so you can see it. And the back of the packaging here is the same picture they took. They lifted this and they put this on the card, which will showcase when you get them out of packaging. They do mention where they got the actual image from. The source, to tell you right here, was from Green Lantern Rebirth #6, if I remember correctly here. Actually, Justice League #6 is where that came from. And that's where they took this image from. So, looks really, really cool. Let's take him on a 360 spin on the turntable here so you can see what he looks like. I do think it looks really, really good to an extent. There's parts that I have a real big problem with, which we'll talk about when I get them off card here. Price point, if you were curious, was $25 US. I got this guy at GameStop. I don't believe it's an exclusive. You can get it anywhere. Probably the easiest places to get it, I would say either Walmart, Target, or GameStop. Those would be the three spots I would hit if you're looking for this particular character. If you are a Green Lantern fan, you may want this character. Again, there's some concerns I have with it and makes sense when we get him off the packaging here and get him off card and showcase him when we get him to the next stage of the breakdown segment, because there is definitely a problem with this figure, and it will make sense momentarily back in the second guy with John Stewart out of package. Alright guys, we have our Mcfarlane Toys Green Lantern John Stewart Rebirth figure out of packaging. Next thing you do if you take a figure out of packaging is look at the paint, articulation, and of course the accessories. First, let's take a real up-close shot here of John Stewart's head sculpt, or what they call the portrait. Good looking shot of him. I'll put some B-roll up so you can see the head sculpt. Really screams John Stewart when you look at it. This looks like John Stewart from the comics. Of course, it's a comic book version of John Stewart. Of course, we talked about this guy right here, which is the DC Unlimited from the Justice League Unlimited, rather. Don't get confused between these two figures. They are the same technical character. This is the animated version. This is the comic book version. Two different figures. Don't get that confused. Really good figure, again, from the design perspective and the way they built the head sculpt here. The body looks really good. Kind of, John's not the biggest guy. He's not like Superman size, or he's not like super, like, let's say Batman size. He's a, you know, he has some bulk on him, but he's not massive as far as his size goes. Good design for him. I like the attention to detail when it comes to the green right here. You have the nice lantern symbol right there. The black wash, the black outfit, the green gauntlets on both arms, and the green boots. Really good design, like the way it looks, but that's where we start getting off the rails, and that's where I think the biggest problem with this figure really lies. I'll get close again so you can see what it looks like, is because this is supposed to be a spandex suit. It's supposed to be skin-tight outfit. It doesn't have these plates that you can see across his abdomen, especially if you look at the card right here, which they lifted some of the inspiration for this figure was based off of this design. He doesn't have body armor, and that's what I was talking about earlier in the video. It looks like he has body armor. Why? I don't know. I'm thinking maybe this was an aesthetic choice they did maybe in Rebirth. I know there was issues with a lot of design for the characters, especially Superman, because there was a licensing right problem, which is part of the reason I believe Rebirth even happened, and leading into, of course, from 52. But I don't like the body armor. This is not Batman. And maybe Mcfarlane got a little bit cheap, cut some corners, and decided to lift a buck from, let's say, a Batman figure to make the Green Lantern outfit here, because, of course, as we know before, Green Lanterns don't need to have body armor. Someone like Batman needs body armor, as I mentioned earlier, because he fights criminals and superpowered beings. He needs some way to offset the damage he takes on his person because he's a normal person. Normally, Green Lanterns, as you can see right here by this hand, wear a power ring, literally the most powerful weapon in the universe. The idea of a power ring, if you're not familiar, is that you can create anything that you think of or your imagination can deem fit. Anything that you know how it works, you can build a construct from, which is what you see on my table in front of me here. These are some construct items, which we'll talk about momentarily. But I don't like the body armor. I don't like what they did here. I think that's not needed. I don't know why they went in that direction. I've seen a couple pieces of art from Rebirth that had this body armor look to it, but I'm not a fan of it. This is not traditional Green Lantern outfits. I don't know why they went in this direction. Very, very weird. You do see a figure stand. These do come with figure stands. Again, not a big fan of them. If you want to do a figure stand, that's okay, but make sure you do double point figure stands. 2 plug points, because there is 2 plug points on the feet right here. Having it with just 1 plug point really is not a great idea in my personal preference. You should have 2 plug points, very similar to, let's say, a G.I. Joe figure in the 3 3/4 scale, so you can lock both feet in so the figure will not get, offset, and will stand properly. It doesn't stand correct really all that well. You got to sometimes move the leg off the figure stand to get him to stand properly. So it gets a little bit sketchy when you talk about his stance and how he'll be able to stay in his position. Next, as we talk, looking aside from the aesthetics of the character, of the figure here, let's talk about that really pinpoint piece that's very important to talk about, the articulation. Let's break down this articulation. First thing, before I break it down, the figure feels a little bit light. I don't know why he feels really light compared to most action figures. Maybe it's because the legs feel a little hollow to me. That may be the reason I'm coming up with, but it doesn't feel as heavy to, let's say, even this Justice League Unlimited version here of John feels a little bit heavier than this guy. So I don't know what the deal is here. I don't know what Mcfarlane was doing, while the figure feels a little bit lighter than that other Justice League figure for John Stewart. So let's talk about the articulation. Head will spin 360, no problem there. Up, we have up and down. Yeah, we have up and down movement here, right there. Nice. Arms will spin through 360 on the shoulders. Now this is very, very cool what they did here. This is a floating shoulder joint. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. You see the joint right there snap up and down. It's sort of, you can roll it and it will go in and out of the shoulder. So it gives you level of articulation so the arm will move freely with no problem. The arms will go out to a T. And you can hear there's a lot of that with this figure, a lot of the clicky joints. I like the feeling of the clicky joints. It's a little bit different from most action figures. Most of the time they don't have that. Let's put the arms back down again. As I mentioned, they have 360 on both arms. This supports a double jointed elbow. You can see the pins right there. Nice double jointed elbow. The wrist will not spin. This right here, rather the forearm, will not spin. This green gauntlet is just sculpted in place. The hands will spin. You have 360 on that. You have up and down on the wrist. I do like that. Nice articulation. This is kind of cool. I was messing with this earlier off camera. The chest will spin 360, so you have this floating joint. Most of the time figures don't have that floating joint. You'll have an ab crunch, which you have here. I'll kind of showcase that here. You do have an ab crunch. You can go forward and backwards. So backwards here, and you can go forward. So you have a 360 spin and you have an ab crunch. So you go backwards and forwards. I like that level of articulation. You have this weird rubber flap on the back here. I'm assuming that is to get this ab crunch so it doesn't break the back of the figure. And you can see the same thing here. It's weird. You have this weird rubber piece in the front. You see it sticking off the front. When I push the figure all the way back, this front piece with the front articulation, the way it's sculpted, pops forward. Very, very weird reason why they did that. I don't know why. Most of the time, you don't see action figures that have this. And maybe this is why this feels weird to me. It doesn't feel like the figure's sculpted. They added this additional piece. You can even see it. Yeah, this is an additional piece they added on. As I'm moving it around, I can feel it floating on the character's midsection. So very, very weird choice why they had this floating joint here. Why it's not all sculpted in place. I'm not sure why Mcfarlane decided to go in that direction. Very, very weird choice when it comes to that level of articulation and design aesthetics. Let's talk about the legs now. We should talk about the legs. You can get a kick, really high kick. So let's move those arms out the way. You can get a pretty decent kick here. Kind of surprised level of articulation you get right there. The leg will spin 360. You got to be careful because these figures are notoriously known that you can spin these legs off this joint and it's a real problem put them back on. So please be aware of that. Take care in this joint if you spin the leg 360 this way. There is a double jointed knee. As you can see, there's 2 pinpoints right here, 2 peg points. You should be able to see, yeah, 2 peg points here and here at the knee right there. Looks very, very good. So you have nice range of motion. So you get them in sort of like a Karate Kid. Hi-ya! Kind of kick right there. The leg can swing back pretty far, not super far, but a respectable amount of articulation. I like that. The lower portion of the leg will not spin on this joint. This joint, the lower shin right here, the lower part of the leg, the lower thigh, well, the thigh's right here, but the lower portion of the leg, the calf, this green bit here, the boot, this piece will not spin. However, you can get 360 on the ankle and you have toe articulation. Again, normal, and you have it bent. So you have a decent amount of range of motion for this particular action figure. I like that level of articulation. I'm very, very happy with what they did there. Let's move John offside here and let's focus on the accessories. As I mentioned, it comes with this card. This is artwork that was on the back of the box. This is where they lifted or got some inspiration to build this figure. The back of it, of course, I'll take some up-close shots so you can see what it looks like. It's the back right up from the Justice League, I believe, number 6. I think it was number 6, yeah. Justice League number 6 comic book. Looks pretty good. And of course, if you didn't know, the artist who did this work right here was Jim Lee. You could tell Jim Lee artwork just by looking at it. This, of course, is Jim Lee. Next, let's focus on accessories. First, let's take a look at the first item. This is this green backpack. If you're not familiar, John Stewart here is a former Marine. So he has an idea of weapons and military expertise, strategy in guns and firearms. So he knows how to create them pretty well. This looks to me sort of like a military style backpack. That's what it looks to me. When we stick this on John, it looks pretty good. You can just snap in place without his construct upper portion, which we'll talk about that shortly. And you can get it on the character, and it looks pretty good. Nice design, nice take when it comes to the way the backpack would look on the figure. Looks good. Is a single peg point right here, if I didn't talk about that, and a single peg point in the back of the figure right here. Next, he has this kind of cool, kind of like a jersey for a football jersey, like a football, set of shoulder pads, and it has where the Green Lantern symbol would kind of shine through, and the back right here with this back flap. fits really easy over the character. We'll talk about it in a second. It does have some stylized right here of Green Lantern logos on the shoulder pads. I do like that. It looks really, really good. This sort of, it's like a neon green in appearance, and it is kind of rubbery. The only concern I would have is maybe down here in this front portion where the lantern symbol would shine through, or would come through, it might tear or rip because it is a little bit fragile on the front, so please be careful. If you want to know how to put it on, it's very, very simple. Literally, it goes right over the character's head, snaps in place, and you get this sort of look now with him. So you have that sort of shoulder pad look right here on the shoulders, which gives it a different feel, a different aesthetic feel to the character. Let's put him back on the figure stand right there. As I mentioned, he does fall off this figure stand quite a bit, as I've been playing with this figure a bit, and it is a bit odd, and he has issues kind of standing. I don't like this single point figure stand. I mentioned it when I did my Unlimited Justice League Unlimited John Stewart figure, this guy here. I did not like the single peg point foot stand. I'm not a fan of it, but it does change up how it looks. Now, if we want to snap the backpack on, there is a hole in the backpack and the sort of shoulder pad that you can stick on the backpack. So you can put both accessories on with no problems. It does not, I don't believe it's going to hinder the articulation for the back portion, well, the back here or here. The shoulders, you're going to get some hindrance just because if you try to circle them in 360, the way this kind of hooks onto the shoulder portion, you're going to lose some articulation in that respect. So just be aware of that. It does flex a little bit here, but again, I want to be careful because this is more of that rubbery material. I don't want to rip it, so that'd be something you want to be very, very careful of. Next and last is the really cool accessory, this really badass minigun. I like the minigun, looks really good. Again, up close shots of the minigun. It looks really, really good. The biggest problem I have with this minigun, it really reminds me of this gun right here. Again, different colored material. This is a brighter green. This is more of a, let's say, lighter colored green here. This is more of a lime green, maybe I would say, or neon green. This is more really neon, this one, this cannon here. This one is not. But why are we getting another minigun sort of weapon? We have one with that Justice League John Stewart. Why do we have to have another minigun? I'm not quite sure. Kind of odd choice to decide to go with this minigun. Again, it looks cool, don't get me wrong. Like the way it looks really, really badass, really, really big honking gun. This might be an aesthetic choice for Mcfarlane, mainly because he likes giving his Spawn characters big guns and big swords and big shields. This might be just another because aesthetic choice for him to give this huge big minigun. Let's get this on the figure real quick so you see what it looks like. Back in a second. Alright guys, it took me a second to try to get John here posed with that minigun, and kind of difficult because the way he has to hold this gun is really, really awkward, but it looks really, really cool. I do like the really honking cool minigun, the Gatling gun, but again, I don't know why they had to go down this road to give him yet another big gun. We have a big gun over here. As I mentioned, I think Mcfarlane really likes using these big guns just to really showcase off the big cool weaponry. Again, we had the John Stewart from Justice League. I kind of go back to it in this video a lot here. Let's go back to normal John that we've seen from the Rebirth here, but it looks good. I do like the way it looks, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good points and bad points with this figure, just a card right there. But yeah, it's very, very weird why they went down this particular road. And also, when you put the gun in his hand, it took a little bit of prying to open his hands up, just because his hands are so tight to get the gun in place. But once it's there, it's there. He's not going to drop this gun. It is pretty secured. It's not kind of raggedy or rickety. He will hold it in place. One thing I didn't really talk about really in the breakdown was how the back, the jersey, the football, armor, the shell on top here, this construct shell here for his shoulder pads, kind of sees what goes through the lantern symbol. I like the way it looks. Again, I'm not a fan of how rickety the bottom is here, and I think it's supposed to kind of fit more securely and not pop up, but it gives that sort of floating 3D feel to it, which looks pretty cool. But all things considered, pretty good figure. If you're a fan of Green Lantern, if you're a fan of John Stewart, I think this is a really cool figure. Again, price point was $25 US. I got mine at GameStop. If you're a fan of lanterns, I really suggest picking this figure up. We don't get a whole lot of new lantern figures, especially from Mcfarlane Toys. The only one we had really was this one right here, and of course we had the Dawnbreaker, which is part of the Dark Knight Metal series, which I did a review of that figure as well. But all things considered, I think this is a really cool figure, all things saying, and I hope you do like this video. Remember to click the like button on the page, click that subscribe button with your picture of my face. When you subscribe, don't click the bell icon to be notified of my latest videos. And of course, last but not least, click Windows over here to watch more of my content. Take care, guys. See you next video, and bye-bye.